Hello, everyone. My name is Kenny Wang, and welcome to this inaugural event for the Oxford Family Business Community. To mark this special occasion, we are honored to host two members of the Feffer family from Brazil, David and Marina. We will take this journey together to understand and share the unique experiences of what it means to grow up in and be a part of a family that runs a business. Before we start the session, a little bit of housekeeping. Please put any questions that you have for David and Marina in the Q&A box. We will keep that chat box free for any technical questions and for the link to the networking portion of this event later on. This session is also being recorded. Raghav Agarwal and I started the Oxford Family Business Community in 2020 because we both wanted to build a safe and empathetic environment for those that are directly or indirectly involved in their family's business, to share their challenges and triumphs and have that support network to lean on. The focus of our community is on the personal journey, the inner conversations and vulnerabilities. And as such, that is what we will focus on today in our discussion. To get to know our audience a bit better, we have this anonymous poll that should now pop up on your screens. Please take a moment to quickly answer this, and the group results will be shared imminently. Maybe while we wait for the results to come in, I'll just talk over the structure of the conversation shortly. So we will split this into two sections. First, with Raghav conducting the conversation with Marina and David for approximately 30 minutes, after which we will pose to David and Marina your questions from the Q&A chat box. So how are we going with those results? Okay, really interesting. So we do have a great split between first generation, so those that are starting the business, working with either themselves or with their siblings, and working through the whole sort of journey so far by themselves. We have next generation leaders, both directly and indirectly involved, so that's a great split. And we have employees of those that are in the family office or the family business, so that's really exciting as well. But what is really interesting is see that almost half of the participants are just really interested in this space, and that's really great to know, and welcome everyone into this discussion. So it brings me immense joy to introduce our incredible speakers today. Starting with Marina, she's a fourth generation leader in her family and is dedicated social entrepreneur that is committed to human development and social impact. She's fascinated by human psychology, of which she studied at university and has transcended into all aspects of her career. She's guided by the interest in finding how individual and familial purpose can work in service of social good. She's an active member of the Aramax Foundation, which is her family's philanthropic firm established over 30 years ago, and is co-founder of Generation Pledge, which aims to grow a community of inheritors that are committed to doing good with their resources. Marina and her outstanding team work collectively to reduce suffering, increase flourishing, and reduce environmental, social, and existential risks. To date, they have 56 committed pledges across 16 countries, totaling $1.5 billion in donations. Not so shabby. She is also one of the most kind-hearted and humble people that I've met. So really thank Marina for joining us today.
Too kind words, Kenny. Thank you for that.
Not a problem. Now, David is the proud father of Marina and grandfather to her baby boy. He is the president and chairman of the board for Suzano, one of the world's largest vertically integrated paper and pulp producers, listed on both the Brazil and New York stock exchanges, valued at over $16 billion, and was established in 1924 by David's grandfather, Leon Feffer. David is passionate about ensuring that there is clear and responsible family governance and transparent communication founded upon trust and respect to ensure the longevity of Suzano. He is deeply committed to achieving their sustainability goals and is a driving force behind not only Suzano, but also in transforming the industry globally. As you can see, we have an incredible power duo here today. And without further ado, I'll now pass it over to Raghav to kick off the conversation.
Thanks, Kenny. Before I start, I just want to remind the audiences to drop their questions in the Q&A box. We'll pick them up right after the interview. All right, I'll jump right in. So I'm a third generation from an Indian family business. While my father always gave me the freedom to sort of pursue my own personal ambitions and careers, there was always an unsaid clause that expected me to come back and grow and expand our business. Now, David, when you joined the business, what were your conversations with your father like? Did you have a choice?
I never thought about that, actually. I think I joined the business when my mother was pregnant. Since always I've been in business, and my grandfather, my father were always talking business at the dinner table, at the lunch table, and all the conversations were about business. So we got exposed to that very early in our lives, and I never thought about something different in the beginning of my life. Later on my career, once or twice, I had that idea, but I thought the leverage was bigger here, so I could transform more in the family business.
No, that's very interesting. So did you have that conversation with your father when you thought about that idea, or did you just say, okay, let's go with the business itself?
Once I had the conversation, and was more or less like your experience. Yes, you can go and do whatever you like, but I don't think I was serious.
No, that's very interesting. So, Marina, the last time the three of us spoke, David said that he would love to have you as an active part of the business. How have your conversations played out with David over the years, right from when you joined the business and when you pivoted to your two-generation pledge?
Yeah, thank you, Raghav, for the question. Just before I dive into the answer, I just really want to thank you for the invitation to be here. And I want to share something that this is the first time that my father and I are speaking together publicly. So that's like a very special moment for us. And I also want to thank the team from the Ownership Project, who are the ones that were building relationship for 3 years and that introduced me to the two of you, to Kenny, Raghav. So we're very happy to be here. It's a special moment for us also personally. And the story, for example, of my father talking to his father about doing something else was something that I didn't know. I knew that he had these thoughts before, but not that he was courageous enough to take the information there. So that was really interesting. So to my story, we grew up, we're in 4 kids. I'm the third woman, we're in 4. And my father grew us up telling us that we had to be productive, autonomous, and happy. And I feel like there was no expectation, at least not an evident expectation of us working inside the family enterprise. And I studied psychology. So for a long time, I felt very disconnected from the family business. So I think that neither I showed interest, and neither I think my father saw me as someone who could contribute, because my path, like the things that I studied, were very apart. But only after I was like 24 years old that I understood that the family enterprise was a leverage and that there was a huge potential there, that I pivoted my whole career and started to work with ultra high net wealth families, with family businesses, with impact. Only then that I pivoted and had this professional experience, I think that my father started to look at me in another way and consider that I could be a resource inside the family. But I think that it has been always super respectful, in the sense that I have to find out where I deliver more value added, something that is unique. And I think that there is a lot of respect for my choice. And I think that he understands that I am doing a very thoughtful choice of doing whatever I'm doing. At the same time, there is a very explicit intention from my side of keep developing myself to be able to contribute inside the family enterprise, taking businesses into consideration when and if that is the case. So it's like one foot in, one foot out at the moment. So time will tell what makes sense.
Oh, that's fascinating. Sort of taking on the last bit, as you're not formally an active part of the business, as in not involved in the day-to-day running, do you ever get a sense of a fear of missing out to the other active family members? And how has that thought process evolved over the years, right from when you joined to when you pivoted?
That is such a good question, because I did feel a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think that to answer this question, we have to think in two different levels. One is like more emotional, and the other one is very concrete and practical. So, on the emotional level, what I believed is that if I followed the identity of a business person and having leadership, I would be more valued because of that. So it took me many years to separate one thing from the other. So when I understood that I could be valued, loved, admired, and acknowledged by other positions, it really changed the FOMO that I felt. And today, it's not that I feel FOMO, it's just that I have a desire to contribute, but in a way that makes a huge sense. But at the moment where I am, leading Generation Pledge is exactly where I have to be. And it is preparing me for the future also. So that is
absolutely. And so I think this is a very, very honest answer that you give, because at times we sort of think that we are all human and we are going to get that fear of missing out, but it's how we deal with it and how we channelize it sort of into what we are doing currently. So I think that's very interesting. David, a question that a lot of us might have as audiences who are working in family businesses. Now, when Marina worked in the business, Marina's, so you are basically the boss of her boss, right? When she's working in the business. How do you work around that construct? How do you know that she's your daughter and she knows that you're her father, but there's a whole chain of authority. How do you work around that construct in the business?
Okay. Well, just a comment on Marina's answer. I loved her answer because she is coming in. One day she's coming in, and I'm proud and patient. Thank you for your question.
And it's recorded.
I was just saying, this is all recorded. We are going to get back to you in a few years with this recording.
Good exercise. Yeah. You know, it is different now than it was 30 years ago. And today we have a very high level of governance in the family. And this is maybe 20 years old, or started to increase about 20 years ago. And I mean, it's not like a click. It takes some time to put governance in place. And today we have a very high level of governance in the company and in the whole organization. So I think we all can split very clearly our roles as professional and our roles as siblings or family. And well, as I said, I'm very proud of her, but she has to follow the rules, follow the governance, and she does, and everyone does. So do I. So it works well.
Absolutely. So that's very interesting because I think a lot of us feel that construct in the business, but it's successfully navigating it and sort of respecting that whole structure around which a family is built. Marina, I was speaking with a friend the other day, and he worked in a family business, and we all had this similar experience in the business. When the newer generation comes in, the older generation tells the newer generation that while setting up the business, I sacrificed everything: family, my personal ambitions, and I did it all for you. And that's something we must very well acknowledge and respect as a newer generation. But how do you strike a balance between acknowledging and respecting that sacrifice and fulfilling your personal ambitions, visions, goals?
Yeah. So first, my first reaction is that I think that sacrifice is too heavy as a word, and I don't know that it is what really is true. So I think that sometimes we hear that I sacrificed a lot because of you, and I would come back to the older generation asking, like, is that really what happened? How much was that not for you? So I think that it's not fair, like, to bring that on us in that way. And something else that I've learned over time is that for many families that are into business, the element of entrepreneurship is really important. So if the older generation tries to strangle us in our own entrepreneurship, we will die as a family. So I think that there has to be a lot of alignment between the past and the new generation to make sure that we have clear expectations on risk, uniqueness, style, the vision for the future, so that we know what are the blueprints and the guidelines, so that we are enabled to use our strengths and not try to repeat the past, because that is what we know that will fail. We will become statistics of families that do not go beyond third generation. So I think that if we have to take time to make alignments before we go into action, it's worth it. It will pay off, because it's really hard to succeed over generations. So that is like my first reaction to your answer, to your question, and would love to hear my father on that also.
Well, the risk is increasing exponentially now. Business mortality from first to second generation is high, from second to third, it's even higher, and third to fourth, it's exponentially higher. So the challenge you have, it's much, much bigger than the challenge our generation had. And also the environment has changed a lot, has exponentially changed since our generation. So this creates an additional level of complexity to the problem. And I really trust that everything we have done and everything that we are still doing in preparing the family, first in raising kids as full power human beings, and then helping them to be themselves and be happy and be productive and successful in whatever they want to be. And for those who want and have the conditions to work in the family, the homework has to be done, and they have been doing so. I'm very confident that they will succeed, and we will exit 21st century better than we came in, which is our goal, by the way. So
absolutely,
I think we have the raw material in house.
That's very interesting. So I think this question basically captures the essence of what we're trying to get across. Going across those two generations and trying to understand their different perspectives and sort of integrating them into, be it a family or a business or the identity that each of you have. Now, this is something we spoke about earlier. Marina, to what extent does your personal identity come from the business, come from the surname Feffer? And how has your identity, your career choices been influenced by that?
So I'm gonna start answering from the end of my professional career, which is like now. Generation Pledge and Marina Feffer are completely intertwined. So my work is completely autobiographical. It is the story of my life. It is me trying to give purpose to the family that I was born into. And Brazil is one of the most unequal countries in the world. So inequality has not at all passed marginally by me. It has really shaped who I am. And my first like 20 years of my life, I was super disconnected from the family business. When I understood that there was value into that and to leverage impact, which was my drive in life, it became my identity. So like,
Yeah.
I can say that like, if there is something beyond 100%, that's my answer.
Yeah.
Really shaped me.
Absolutely. So I think that's very, very interesting. And uh, the surname, it gives you both sort of opportunities and also poses challenges at times, be it through a professional career or while you're growing up. Since like you're younger, you're going into new environments, newer countries, newer schools. So I think it's all a part of it, right?
Yes, just to add a little bit more to this answer, it is totally, it did totally shape my identity, but I did bring a very specific flavor to that. And I think that the way that I dealt with being from my family and in Brazil, which as I was mentioning is a very unequal country, the way that I answered, what does it mean to come from this family, is something very specific and not something that anybody in the family had done. So I really feel like I repurposed the surname with commitments to the world, like use acknowledging that coming from such a family and honoring the past allows me to do things that other people do not leave the same starting position from. So really honoring the surname and committing to do as much as I can.
And
But
maybe
I think,
you want to add that this was not automatically, because it took you a while to get there where you are today, and you had a lot of experiences. You struggled a lot, and maybe the journey you did was a very interesting journey.
absolutely.
For
So I
sure.
think this sheds light on both sides of the identity, right? And I think something we'd probably like to know is business typically discussed around the Feffer dining table, and what are those discussions like? Like, who's is it maybe the newer generations, the older generations dominating those discussions?
I think we have very little business discussions in general within our dinner table, but we can escape from that. We try not to, but depends who's at the table. If at the table there are only people involved in the business, then the risk is bigger. But if there are other people on the table, then we are very strict on governance, and I think we avoid having those conversations. But maybe Marina wants to add her view. Maybe it's not exactly the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the conversations are not around like business, like the implementation, like the ROI of the company, not that. But I do feel like we always have conversations on vision, strategy, challenges of innovation, leadership challenges. I always listen to my father speaking about how his role has changed over the years, how he's dealing with all of that. So I think that we talk about business, but in that other way, like not talking like the numbers, not talking about like the specific factories or, but we do talk a lot, in my opinion.
Concepts, you mean?
Yes,
Concepts, yes.
business
Yeah,
concepts. Yeah.
sort of bigger picture things, right? So that's very, very interesting. Now, Marina, I understand that the fifth generation is already here. Uh, are we thinking of plans already? Are there no discussions around it? How does it work?
Yeah, so the eldest in the fifth generation, she's 12 years old now. And to be completely honest, I do not know what the plans are because our governance is very structured and we have an educational committee that looks into the future shareholders' education. So they would know how to answer that. I do not because I left that committee a few years ago, but I
Yeah.
can definitely come back with an answer if that's helpful.
But we would love to have David's views on that. He's probably aware about that bit.
Well, there is a certain age where they can start to be involved in business if they like. So, and to receive business education if they like. So it's a little too early for her. But from as of this year, she was officially admitted in the family reunions related to family business. So we do not discuss business exactly, but we discuss purpose, we discuss how to keep united and how to remain as a family in business for a longer time. And she's trying. She's now getting used to it, and if she really shows interest in the business, she will be trained by the same. Or not the same, because will be different in the future. The tools will be different, the requirements will be different, but she will receive the best we can give her. And if she does not shows any interest, she will be prepared to be a shareholder, because hopefully she will be a shareholder. So she will receive what we call the basic kit for education, which is how to be a responsible shareholder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something that, sorry, Raghav, just to build on, we, in our governance, we have clusters for shareholders. So the minimum requirement is for you to be a responsible shareholder, as my father was saying. Then there are other levels, which are active shareholders, executive shareholders also that work in our companies or in the foundation, in the philanthropic foundation, and also leaders, not necessarily working as executives, but playing a role in the bigger ecosystem within the family enterprise. So we train everybody to have at least the minimum requirements, like to understand the minimum of business, finance, governance, family dynamics, all of that. And a challenge that we have already now when we're preparing the fourth generation, and definitely we'll have even more for the fourth generation, is how to understand diversity as a real strength of the family. So how can we show role models? How can we talk about aspirations without repeating the one position, which is like the business leader, not only saying that you're successful if you are David's successor. So how can we really leverage this idea of diversity in practice? So hopefully she will have the benefits of us training her with diversity as a real value.
That's very interesting, especially when we talk about the fifth generation, and it sheds light in the amount of planning it takes, the kind of governance it takes to actually to successfully progress, 5 generations through the Feffer family. Pulling back from the fifth generation, I'm going to go back right to the second generation to something I discussed with you the last time we spoke. David had mentioned that he has a brother who chose not to join the business, right? And he's a very talented musician. And can you talk us through that bit? How did that work out? And how's that? How did that work? How did that bit work out?
Of course. And just before answering your question, I want to go back a little bit to the point we were talking before. And since half of our audience are people involved in the family ecosystem professionals involved in the ecosystem, that brought to my mind that one of the reasons we have been successful in bringing from the third to the fourth generation, or from the second to the third, and now starting to give the baston to the fourth generation, to the stick to the fourth generation, is because we have very good professionals around us, supporting us, leading us and inspiring us. So this is a very important part of the ecosystem. We cannot succeed without it. So having professionals that are committed, that are very competent, that are very patient sometimes, and and that have the knowledge and the ability to do this development is of essence. It requires a lot of, say, technology to achieve what has to be achieved. And as Marina said, we have to develop this new strategy with all diversity that we have in hands, and transforming diversity into a surplus, into an asset. And at the same time, we need to be very competent and very meritocratic. So we like to use a phrase, strong and gentile. You have to be ambidextrous. You have to be both things at the same time. And those professionals are the ones who can help us in achieving that. So it's very good to have several of them here, and they will probably, they're probably the reason of successes for the family business they are involved in. So going back to your question, yes, I think Ruben, who, by the way, when he started his musician career, he didn't use his full name because of exactly what you were asking, Marina. He used, instead of Ruben Feffer, he used Ruben F.
That's very interesting. That's very.
He was trying to develop his career on his own. And he was very brave, very courageous to talk to our father and say, look, I worked here for a while, but my dream is to be a musician, and I want to go on solo. So, and my father, who was an amateur musician, said, well, good luck, and count with our support, be happy. And he's being very happy. Actually, he directed the movie, and the movie was one of the 4 movies appointed to the red carpet in Hollywood, to the Oscars. So
awesome. We should watch it next time. The both of you are in London. We would love to watch it to celebrate this webinar, which is very first webinar. I think this brings us to a fitting last question for the interview. We've all heard of the age-old saying, the first generation builds it, the second generation maintains it, and the third generation gives it away. Now, David, you're the third generation. Can you talk to us about the kind of pressure you had and how you've avoided that pressure as the third generation?
Well, something was wrong in the third generation in our family, and it didn't happen. So the pressure is on Marina's and sisters, brothers, and cousins now.
Thank you so much for that. It's so kind.
We can see an intergenerational transfer of pressure, if not anything else. No, that makes a lot of sense. You did tell us about how Suzano has successfully managed to avoid that, especially with the help of professionals, technology, governance. But yeah, I think this does give us a sense of the kind of effort and the kind of planning it takes a family business to successfully get through generations and generations of the family. On that very positive note, I just want to ask whether we have any final comments before we go into the audience Q&A, and then we can head there.
Yeah, and just adding to the point you mentioned, it is a very hard work to prepare the next gen, and we are very happy, very lucky in our family, because my second brother Daniel leads the family circle, and he is very competent in leading us and in doing this work that we are doing. So everything that we are doing is under his leadership, and he has a big team. He works hard, and well, we are very confident that next gen will be successful.
Absolutely. I think this has been incredibly fascinating and very enriching. I could go on for hours, but I'm afraid we have to move to the next session, the audience Q&A. Kenny, take it away.
Thanks everyone. And I'm just sitting here listening and reflecting as well. And I'm learning so much actually myself. I'm a second generation, so we've got a fair bit to go before we hit the sort of third and fourth generation. But definitely there's a lot of nuggets of knowledge in there that I think we can all definitely take away. One of the first questions that I see in the Q&A actually ties into what we've just discussed around sort of the family governance and sort of the structure and making sure that it's very sort of systemic in the way generations progress. So the question that I'll ask is, what kind of reporting structures do you have around the family business, and what's the interface between family members and management? And I think as well it might be worth touching on this family circle, or what some might call family council, and just sort of how that plays into the overall ecosystem.
You want to give your answer?
David, sorry. I forgot that we're in a webinar. But yeah,
when
David,
you are here, you're much more entitled to answer that than me. So it's your role. Go for it.
Okay. Well, it's very professional. Everything is very professional, and the governance is very strict. So, say, if you start from bottom down, from top down, I'm the chairman. I chair a 9-seat board. 2 of the seats are family members, 7 are non-family members. By the way, with a lot of diversity. So age, gender, everything. So the board is professional. The board has to follow the rules. And then the management, it's 100% professional and has to follow the rules, and that's governance. So I think if you have governance, it will work. That's
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how does that? Sorry.
No, and you have to be very strict on that. And strict means, well, if people are not performing, you have to have the ability to change.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges of having family members in the business. Nothing against them. We have a few, actually 2, but we have to have the ability to remove them if they're not performing well, including the chairman.
Actually, I think that's something that would be on the minds of a lot of the folks in the audience, which is, as you mentioned, if you have these underperforming members, what is that approach? Is it, for example, more strict than the employees, or is it at the same? What's the approach?
Before family members enter into business, we have a very strict, more strict than any other professional member I know of. But once they enter the business, they have the same rule, the same analysis, the same bar as everyone, and but they have the pressure, the pressure that Raghav said about his family and his hidden pressure. And so it's a little different for them because they have to grow faster than the others.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. I'll move on to
just one additional note. The rest of the family, I think that there is a challenge of how do we keep them engaged, knowing what's necessary to know, and learning also. So, for example, things that we do twice a year, we have a meeting with the CEO of our main company, and he shares with us results. So financial results, sustainability results, like strategy, all of those things. We also have lessons on finance to prepare for these meetings with him, and all of the family members are invited. We receive the reports. We know when they're going to have calls like with the financial markets to share results and who wants can participate. Whenever there's something important on media, we have a channel where we share those information with all of us. So there is a big effort in keeping everybody engaged and with information that they need to have.
Yeah, and that's an enormous effort, I can imagine. And I'm curious that the us here, what's the size of this group? What's the size of the number of family members that are sort of informed with this? Are we talking tens, or are we getting close to 100 or even more?
We are second generation. We still have my mother alive, luckily, and she's 84. And then from the third generation, we are 4, ranging from 50 to 64. And that's me. and and next gen, fourth 13. Gen, 13, from 0 to 39.
Wow.
One, not 0. 1 to,
yeah.
Is that right? 1.
More or less. So the fifth generation has a month, but in the fourth generation, so my generation, we have from 3 years old until 39.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's
3 to 39. It's a 36 years gap.
That's wow. Actually, I've got a question here that's slightly different, and I'll ask it to Marina. Is that in this world of consumerism and everyone's showcasing their wealth, it's all about what you're showing on Instagram, and it's all very out there, more than what was maybe possible in the past. How do you and the rest of the family sort of manage this entitlement and this sort of sense? How do you make sure everyone's grounded? How do you make sure there's that humility and humbleness that you all obviously have? But I just wonder, how did you sort of get to that with the family?
Yeah, I think that the first person that comes to mind is my grandmother. So my father's mother. And she's always speaking about being humble and humility and where the idea of humility comes from. So it comes from humus, keeping the ground fertile and saying that everything really grows from there. So I think that in our family, we do not have a culture of arrogance. And I think that we really value the hard work. And we come from a background that teaches us that scarcity is not something that is in the air. It's really something that can happen. So we come from a Jewish background. So I think that knowing where you come from, who you are, really makes you feel connected to like the important values, essence, and taking care of how you want to show up, what you want to build. So in our family, even like if you reflect that into communication strategies, we have not been until the recent years of a family with a high profile. We have been either no profile or very low profile. And this is slightly starting to change recently, not because we want to have more reputation, but because we understand that as one of the assets for change making. So, for example, the company has been more explicit with some ideas that they believe that have to be advanced. So, for example, speaking about biodiversity in Brazil, making public campaigns, which is something that we did not do before. Me personally, I just decided that I was going to use my identity as work because I understood that that was access to certain spaces that otherwise I would not have. So I understood that it was at service of something that I wanted to achieve. So I think that really looking inside and then looking outside and seeing how does this serve the transformation and the world and not me in an ego place is really how to go about it.
Wow.
Just piggyback on Marina's comment. She has this humble from her grandmother, and I remember having this lesson from my grandfather and my grandmother, both sides, and the family always valued low profile, always valued this intimacy, and it was very difficult 3 years ago when we acquired a competitor of ours, which was almost twice as big as we were. So and we became number one in the world, and then we were obliged to be more high profile. We were non-profile, not non-profile, as Marina said. So we were zero, or even below zero, if this was possible. And we had to expose ourselves a little bit. It was a very difficult decision to be taken, very difficult decision in all levels. And the decision we took was to do it in a ambidextrous way. So let's increase our profile, showing the ideas, showing the purpose, showing the concepts, and not talking about bragging about ourselves.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's something that is definitely hard to execute on, to make sure that this message and transcends across everyone in the family at all levels. Yeah, definitely very
the family and the business, very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to keep trying to go through these questions. We've got quite a few now. So in terms of, and I'll direct this one at David, paper and pulp brings up immediate environmental issues. Are there different generational views on these environmental issues? How do you navigate these differences? And maybe even reflecting, from your grandfather to your father to yourself, to Marina, that might also be quite interesting.
Well, I'm very happy that we are lucky to work in pulp, which depends on trees. And trees are live beings. And they have to be taken good care of. So if we want to have an excellent company with very high productivity, we have to take good care of the environment.
Absolutely.
And we have been doing that for a long time. We pay a lot of attention. We invest a lot of energy, time and money in making sure that we do the best possible that we can do to the environment. And by the way, just to give you an idea, when I started my term 20 years ago, it was very difficult for me to decide a vision, and so the vision was, let's get out of the 21st century better than we came in. So we had a notion of time. Was not one quarter or every year, but it's a continuity. It's a long time process, journey. And in order to support that vision, we developed 3 pillars. One was family business behind the family. Second was meritocracy. And the third, which we are very proud of, and was written in 2003, was a commitment to stakeholders. So in 2003, this was very uncommon. In 2018, Business Roundtable brought a lot of light into this issue, and now everybody talks about this, but then was very, very earlier for us to say commitment to all stakeholders. And commitment to all stakeholders relates to the environment and to the communities as well, and others. So we do pay a lot of attention to it. We take very good care of the communities, very good care of the trees, of the environment, of the natural forests. We farm forests, by the way. We don't clear cut. It's like a corn farm, tomato farm. We plant. And with the best possible available technology, with the little impact, the minimum possible impact in the environment. And just to give you an example, Suzano has over 2 million hectares of land, and half of it is preservation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's much higher than the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny,
Excellent.
may I bring my perspective here?
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
Thank you. So what I saw happening is that maybe 10 years ago, we were not perceived as an important player in shaping the landscape of environmental issues. And I think that what happened over time, and mainly like in the last 3 years, we can say, and so after we became the first player in the pulp production in the world, we understood that forestry is our main asset. So if that is the case, the environment is a really important matter to us. And being the biggest player in the world, we could say, the biggest responsibility too. So we have made it public that we want to own that, and we want to lead also in shaping the solutions for the future. So we think of ourselves in the company as a very strategic player in building the solutions through bioproducts, which is what we do. So we detached ourselves from pulp and paper only. We're really thinking ourselves as a forestry player, and how to make sure that whatever we do business-wise is part of the solution to the challenges that we have. And we have now, because of our governance that are really rigid, we have public goals that are super ambitious, with getting better and better over time. So that is really interesting. We have in our website reports that are very clear with indicators. We have a center for indicators. All of that is public. So I recommend people who are interested in that topic to taking a look.
Just turning a bit more business-centric, what Marina said, you can, from everything you do from oil, basically you can do from trees.
Mm-hmm.
And Suzano has the ambition in the future to be in other areas besides pulp and paper. And we forged a word that symbolically means what we are doing. We call it's the merge of two words: innovation and sustainability. So we say everything we are doing for the future has to be innovability.
Innovability. Love it.
Has to have both concepts inbuilt.
Excellent. Thank you. I mean, that was an incredible insight. We don't have that much time left. I'm going to ask one last question, which I think is super interesting. And I'm sorry for the audience that typed in so many awesome questions. But this one last one, I'll ask Marina, and then I'll close our Q&A. So, in the past, how have you synchronized with your friends and contacts who have a completely different life, different opportunities, different constraints? How have you navigated that?
Yeah, so because of my personality, I get very bored with repetition. So over the years, I developed friendships that are very different than my own personal story inside the family. So although I studied at a British school in São Paulo, where the people that I had more friendship with, they came from similar backgrounds, I at the same time built relationship with people that were outside. And that was a fundamental piece of my identity, because I felt confident on who I was because of myself. And I tried to not to show the family that I came from. So really like building relationship as Marina. And that was very important, because excessive money, and I'm very convinced of that. It can be much more complicated and have a bad note on your personal identity than it supports. So I think that we have to try and discover like who we are for ourselves and build relationship on top of our first name only. So that was important for me.
Wow.
And she did a good job in the beginning, living with very little money and hippie-like.
What I say is that my soul is still hippie, and I live in a more adult way now.
That's right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm really just in awe of the, just the education, the humility, the gratitude, and everything that I think, as the Feffer family really is a benchmark that we can all aspire towards. So, really thank you for that. But unfortunately, that is unfortunately all the time that we have for today, and for this part of the event. And so, I just want to thank again our guests David and Marina so much for not only being so gracious with your time, but actually being super gracious with sharing the personal journeys that you've all that you shared with us. I think it's such a special insight. It's intimate, and it's something that we're truly grateful for. So we can't get claps, but anyway, there'll be claps. There'll be raging applause.
Thank you very much for your word. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the opportunity you gave us. As Marina said, for both of us to be on stage on something serious, it's a privilege. Was something that she said she dreamed about that before. I never had this dream before, but was a unique experience. I was a little scared in the beginning when we discussed about this idea, and I'm very happy, very relaxed, very happy that we had this opportunity today. I really hope that our conversations today can be of help to the people, to the audience, and I'm 100% available to assist in any possible way. So thank you very much for inviting us and for this opportunity.
Yeah, I totally resonate. Thank you so much. It was very special. I'm sure that for my father too, but for me, it meant a lot. And I also want to put myself available to whoever wants to talk about family business, also about Generation Pledge. Very available.
I need to take a moment to thank our team. So, Andrew Darenberg, who's the executive in residence at the business school and the former head of the family business community at the World Economic Forum. Brice Delamondier, the family business lecturer at the school and is the 4th generation leader of Domaine Le Fleuve Wines. Mary Johnson-Louis, the program director for the Ownership Project and chair of the board for B Corp UK. Jun Tao, the executive education program lead for family businesses in China. And Hannah Evans, our alumni relations manager, that's pulling all of this together and making it work.